Support this podcast via our Patreon and get more writerly goodness. Visit patreon.com/nanocast to join up.
Welcome to NaNoWriMo Every Month. My name is J. Daniel Sawyer. I'm the author of some 20 books, 34 short stories, and numerous articles and other things, and I am your guide on this journey to use NaNoWriMo to level up to professional output levels. Welcome to The Questions, Day 7. This is part 2 of a series started yesterday about editing, cycling, and stuff like this. And this is another question that dovetails with the last one from Melissa. This one is also from Melissa. By the way, Melissa, thank you for so many questions. It'll give us a lot of episodes. It's great. Keep sending them in. And Melissa says, "You talk about cyclic editing. I'd really like to hear more how you do that, because the writing the whole draft then edit is killing me. But I'm not sure how to do it and not over-polish like you were talking about. I type relatively fast, but will drop words, typos, wrong word, etc. But then looking back at a 100K rough draft and needing to edit it is just overwhelming. But I want to make my prose sparkle. And all the other advice I get outside of you and Dean Wesley Smith is to go over it 5 or 6 times. But if I do that, I hate the book to the point where I can't stand looking at it. So, how do you do your editing?" Well, 5 or 6 times, man. I can't blame you, Melissa, for hating it after that, and going back through after 100,000 words from de novo is just a royal pain in the ass. And this is coming from someone who's written books of 220,000 words before. And you think 100,000 words is bad to edit. Oh boy. Alright, so my editing happens in 2 stages. The first is the cycle. I produce very clean first drafts because I cycle a lot. When I am going through and I run into something, I realize that I haven't set it up, but it's the perfect solution to this. I'll pop out of the manuscript, go back, set it up, then pop forward again and continue going. If I get somewhere and I realize that I've forgotten something, something's not working, I need to figure out what it was, I'll frequently get to a point where I don't know where I'm going, but I knew I had had a sense of momentum just a few minutes before, so I'll pop back in the manuscript and read through again to get my bearings, and then keep going at the end. Anytime I pop back or pop around in the manuscript to different places where there's always editing, I'm always touching things. I'll be reading something, go, dropped word there. No, it's then, not tan. And I'll fix that as I'm reading it through. It doesn't pop me out of the creative space. It's just as I'm working through writing the book, because I am not a slave to the direction of the manuscript like a reader is. When the reader reads, they read from the beginning to the end. Writing, you can write as out of order as you want, and it doesn't matter. It won't matter a whit to the reader who reads it from beginning to end no matter what. So you pop out, you go other places, you read through. When you come back to the keyboard after having been away for an hour or a day, drop into the manuscript a chapter before you left off, read through, get your bearings, and start going again. And as you read through, you touch things here and there. You realize that, as you're reading through, you get jostled out of the manuscript because you used the red 4 times in one sentence. Because you used the word red 4 times in one sentence, so you fix that real quick and you keep going. It's all just part of the process. I guess, from what you and other people have asked me, the most difficult part to really grasp about this is that you don't have to stay where the reader would be if they were reading through your manuscript. I had a book recently where I bounced off the end 6 times. I got all the way to the end. I realized that the main storyline was going in a particular direction. I really liked it, but my subconscious wouldn't let me take it there because I hadn't set it up properly, so I popped back. I read through, I figured out where the setup was needed, I put the setup in. I got all the way to the end again and I realized, there's another character who I've forgotten entirely in the book. I opened the book with this character, and for the first entire half of the book, she was front and center, one of the point of view characters, and then at the halfway mark, I completely forgot her. And I just wrote the book on as if she never existed in the first place. Well, that was a problem because everything that happens at the end depends on her being there and depends on what she started at the beginning of the book. So I needed to figure out how she was going to get to the end of the book to help close it out. So I popped back and I read through and I realized, well, I had dropped her out because there was some really emotional stuff going on with my other point of view character, and I got really invested in it. And as a writer, I didn't want to leave it until I had completed that whole arc. Now I had completed it, so I went back and picked up this other point of view character's storyline and wrote that all the way through, and discovered that having it there made everything else make a lot more sense, because my subconscious mind had that all in mind as I was writing. But as I was reading through, there was a point at which the book seemed to change into a different book, except it kind of worked. And that's because my subconscious mind had been writing, knowing what was going to happen in the other thread. My conscious brain had no idea. So I went and I wrote the other thread. Suddenly that was working again. And each time I went through, as I find little mistakes, suddenly one character has brown eyes instead of blue eyes, whatnot. I touch that, fix it, keep going. I wound up bouncing off the end of this book 6 times. And what I thought was going to be a 60,000 word book wound up being almost 120,000 words. But I got to the end of 120,000 words, and it's a very clean manuscript. And that brings me to stage 2 of my editing process, which is I hand it off to my proofreader. Sometimes that proofreader is one person. Sometimes that proofreader is a team of 4 or 5 people, each of whom have different expertises or specialities. All of those 4 or 5 people are fans that have come along at various points. I've gotten to know them as people, and they've been excellent. They like getting advanced access to the stories, read them through, mark them up for me, and send them back. And they read for continuity and clarity. And that's it. And if something loses them, they tell me where they got lost. That's all I want from them. That's all I care about from them. Unless they're a technical expert, then they read through for whatever their technical expertise is. Like Mark Jeffrey helped me tremendously with the 6th book of the Clark Lantham series on getting my technical details on Bitcoin right. So whether I've got 1 person or 6 people, I get the marked up manuscripts back. If there's more than 1 person, I merge all the comments into one, and then I sit down, and it usually doesn't take more than a day, even for a 100,000 word manuscript. And I go through the comments, and I look at each comment. I decide, is that one I want to pay attention to or no? If no, I get rid of it. If it is, I leave it there, or fix it if it's an easy fix. And I winnow it down until I've only got the comments that require some real thought, because they're technical details I might have gotten wrong that would require me to cut certain sections out or to rewrite certain sections in order to make them work. And I look at those and I decide whether or not they're worth worrying about. If they are, sometimes I'll sit on them for a day if they're kind of involved. And by sitting on them, I don't mean I'll sit and walk around the house and think about things. No, I mean I'll read them, I'll take a moment to internalize the suggestion, and then I will leave the computer for a day and I will not think about it. It goes on the back burner in my head. I let my subconscious chew on it. And then I come back to the manuscript and I look again the next day at the comment. And sometimes my subconscious has decided that's not worth worrying about. And so I throw it away. And sometimes my subconscious has decided that is worth worrying about, and here's what we do. And so I will then do what my subconscious tells me to do. It's kind of like being possessed, but, with less pea soup vomit. So it works out. But that's how my process works. The goal is, like I was saying a few episodes ago, to reduce friction. I do not want to get to the end of a 100,000 word book and then have to go through it 3 or 4 times. I did that on a couple of books. It didn't help a lot. It was a lot of work. It yielded very, very little in the way of results. I actually get much cleaner books with fewer typos and better movement of stories now that I've been willing to let that go some. So, for what it's worth, that's how I do it. And hopefully it helps you, because it sounds like you're really stuck in your own kind of special hell next to child molesters and people who talk at the theater. So, give yourself a little break, let it go, get a trusted reader or few readers to comb through your manuscript for typos, dropped words, that sort of stuff. And then just go through and look at their comments and do with them what you will. Don't sit there and plow through the manuscript time and time again. It'll just make you hate what you do. And not only will it take up time that you could be writing new stuff, but it will disincentivize you from going back once you get this one out to market. So, anyway, that's how it works. And I'll see you tomorrow. NaNoWriMo Every Month is written and presented by J. Daniel Sawyer and produced by Artistic Whispers Productions. Visit our website at NaNoWriMoEveryMonth.com and leave a tip in the tip jar to support this podcast. NaNoWriMo Every Month is copyright 2015 by J. Daniel Sawyer and Artistic Whispers Productions and released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license.